everybody, welcome back. Live at Drew's house, Joppa Afternoon Drive. It is our 4th of July show. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. And I don't know if you're away. It feels like a lot of people are away. A lot of people go north or the Cape. But whatever you're doing, grilling, family, all that stuff, we hope you're doing well out there. Stay safe and enjoy it. Enjoy the fireworks if you're going to a fireworks show. All that good stuff. It is a good time of year. Summer picks up steam, and we have only good days of weather ahead now, right? That is the case. It's actually a great day, too, for me to shout out our staff. I like to do that. I don't get to do it enough. I always say, when you hear me refer to our small but mighty team here in Newburyport, that is us. It is a very small group of people, relatively speaking, that do a whole lot of work for the amount of content that we put out there. The boss, Sarah Hayden, just had a recent birthday. Sarah Hayden is in charge, and she does everything here, so we appreciate her keeping this place steady. Madeline Clement, Maeve Power, who Maeve has kind of taken over this particular show, so we thank you, Maeve, very much. Does a great job and keeps me on track. I'm not always the easiest, so thank you, Maeve. Ryan Rothberg, he's very hands-on with this show as well. Randall Collum is all over this place. Lee Cusack, Lily Woodger, Amelia Snyder, and Tom Goodwin. So that is your staff of NCM Hub. 4th of July with the holiday, I thought it was a good time to shout everybody out for all the great work that they do. As far as today's holiday show, I've been meaning to do this for a while here. We kind of had it was an annual guest for us. Every Thanksgiving, I would have Jim Stehlin, the late Jim Stehlin, on. And we would talk football, family, Thanksgiving, all the memories. Of course, that giant, beautiful football field over at Newburyport High School is named after the legendary football coach, James Stehlin. And Jim was just a good guy. I literally called him every single Thanksgiving the week before, and I just said, hey, can we do it again? And like clockwork, he'd pick up the phone, Drew, and he was just sharp as could be all the way to the end. That's the one thing I always said about him. He had a memory like you couldn't believe. Remembered players, plays, scores. He just unbelievable memory after all those years of coaching. But when he passed away this year, I guess some people knew he was sick. I did not. And I had just seen him, months before, and we did the Thanksgiving show like we do every year. I think I looked back. I think we did it 5 or 6 years in a row, that Thanksgiving show. You can go find him on YouTube and all that. But the most recent one, I was just caught off guard by his passing away, and I'd been wanting to kind of put that show back out there for a while. So I figured when it's kind of a quiet time, a lot of you are away doing whatever this 4th of July, I thought it would be a good day to kind of roll that show back and play the James Stehlin show from this last Thanksgiving. I will tell you, I'm going to miss that part of it. It was become a holiday tradition for me, having the coach on and doing that show, and I'm going to miss it here for future Thanksgivings as he passed away this year. And again, I was really hurt to hear that news, like so many people in this community were, and so many former players, and he just impacted so many people, and he had this little impact on this show too. Jim Stehlin, rest in peace. This is the Jim Stehlin Show, live at Drew's house, Joppa Afternoon Drive from this past Thanksgiving. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Hope you enjoy this. Hey everybody, welcome back. Live at Drew's house, another edition. Let me be the, probably not the first, but let me wish you a happy Thanksgiving out there. Hope you enjoy the day with your family and a good holiday season. And I am joined, as I am pretty much every time around this time of year. We usually try to do this at least once a year with Coach Jim Stehlin, the former legendary coach at Newburyport. How are you there, Coach? What's going on?
Fine, thank you, Drew.
It's so great. Thank you so much for making some time. I know it's a busy time of year, and it's so great of you to always make some time for us here. We appreciate it. It's
always a memorable time for me.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving means so much to high school football, especially the Newburyport Amesbury game is just something special.
You went through a few good ones of those, huh?
We had some great ones, yeah.
What's the one, when you think back to Thanksgiving Day, is it, does one game jump out at you, or is it more just the routine of just that Thanksgiving buzz?
We've had some real good ones, things that, really memorable. The 66 game, which was the probably one of the greatest teams we ever had here over in Amesbury, was memorable.
Mm-hmm.
Really, we just celebrated the Wall of Fame, and Ray Hartnett who was a defensive tackle on the '65 team. That was a very big game, and that was here.
Yeah.
And it was my first win. I came in '64, and we lost over to a very good Amesbury team over at Amesbury. But '65, we came back, and we won our first game against Amesbury, which was one of our goals that year. That was also the team that won the first Northeast Conference championship.
Okay.
And Ray was a big part of it. The interesting team. There were 11 Wall of Famers on that team.
Oh, wow.
There were Ray and Jim Marcus and Ricky Williams from that class. And then from underclassmen, there were 8 underclassmen on it, which a lot of was the '66, the great '66 team.
Huh.
Those teams were, but we've had so many great games with them, close games, and tough games. So
it's a rivalry that means a lot to you.
Well, the rivalry means a lot because I think it means a lot to all those who competed. Whatever your situation was, whether you considered it a good year or a bad year as far as a won or a loss, the tradition is very important to keep that going.
Yeah.
It means so much, not only to the present players, but to those who played before, to the families that came before that were so involved in it. And, interesting, as I mentioned in the '65 game, which is our first game, that was home. And that was the largest crowd that I had at a Thanksgiving home game where
really?
I had coached.
Wow.
We had, I think it was something like 9,700 paid.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I think the biggest Thanksgiving Day crowd was, I think back in '53, Wallace Sheridan's great team with Paul Riley and Bob McAniff and a host of others. I think they went over 10,000.
Wow, man.
The '66 game was over in Amesbury, and I'm not sure what the figures were, but you just couldn't get into the place.
Crazy.
We were fortunate in '66. We had over 10,000 with Swampscott in the Swampscott game.
Yeah.
So they were unbelievable crowds, and
You really don't get crowds like that anymore.
I don't think high school football does anywhere. Yeah. It's impossible. The communities are so much different,
right?
And there's so many different interests now. To imagine to say, what's the chances of them having 9,700 for this game?
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, it's just the nature of the world, right?
Yeah,
There's
it's the
more.
nature of the world.
Yeah.
It's all over Massachusetts. The game's still important to the players. It's still important to their families. I would. The communities are different. They don't have the ties they had. In those days, the families could go back to uncles, aunts, grandfathers that played in the game, and because they lived in the community. I think of the players that I met this year when I spoke to him earlier in the year, Danny Sullivan, who was a great halfback on the '65, '66 team. His grandson is on the he's on the Clipper team, and there's a Brennan on that Clipper team. The grandson of probably one of the greatest Newburyport fans of all time, Nettie Brennan, who still attends a game. So I don't think you have as many because of the nature of families now, and the mobility of people and
Sure.
where they're living now, where they come from. So it's different.
You know what though? It is still maybe not on that widespread scale, but there is still that players probably don't even realize how connected some in the community are. Because you talk about how much it means to the players, it also means so much to the cheerleaders and the people that have their routines and work in the snack bar. And I remember my grandfather used to go to the Danvers High games, and I never played football. None of his grandkids ever played. He just had the routine of going and loved it.
You know. If you were to talk in those days to some of the present players who were playing in the 60s and 70s, they would tell you that they sold programs at the games because they knew the players who played 10 years before them. You know, a kid could be in second grade and he already was beginning to know players. It was so important in the community, and of course, you didn't have the national, the Patriots as strong as they are, and then things like that. So, but then you look at where Eastern College football is. It's in you're lucky if you get you can watch an Ivy League game. You're lucky if there's really a few thousand.
Yeah.
Right now, one of the hottest teams in I think college teams is Holy Cross. They're having a tremendous year. You know, they may draw something like 10,000 or so, but BC's going through a tough time, and it's difficult to pull visitors. What amazes me the most, really, on the college scene is that they don't draw the alumni they used to. They don't draw their own student fans there as much like they used to. It's just different. The only way you find that now is in the big schools and college.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's especially when they're not. It's funny. It never used to matter if the programs were winning or not. Now it seems like you kind of have to have a winner to draw the crowds.
You have to have a winner to. We're so. I think. A lot of that has to do with the influence of professional football, professional sports. That the aspect of winning is so strong that if you're not doing it, winning, and if you're not winning championships, it's tough to get people to follow you.
Again, former legendary coach here at Newburyport, Jim Stehlin, joining us. We were talking about your record a little bit before you came on. Some of the people in the studio were wondering if you remembered it, and you did a whole lot of winning, certainly. Was there ever a down year that you guys had where you knew going, whatever happens, maybe it's injuries, maybe for whatever reason, it's not your year as far as titles and all that stuff. But was there like a team that you were extra proud of that maybe didn't get all the celebratory, all the write-ups?
Well, the two teams that we had the toughest years with were when I first came here, the '64 team. And I always felt bad about that. We started playing well at the end of the season. We played a lot of teams tough. We ended up 1-7-1.
Okay.
And
that was your first year?
That was my first year.
Okay.
And there were some good athletes on that team, but we just couldn't get it together. People like, Mike Doyle, Paul Shepard, Ronnie Fox. And
this memory of yours, how do you remember this stuff? That's unbelievable. I can't remember what I had for breakfast today.
But anyway, that was a difficult time. And then the next year, as I mentioned, 65, 66, 67, we started winning the championships. And then what happened was right around 69, Triton made their plans to open. And Triton opened in 71. Mm-hmm. So we just completely lost half of our student body. And we were still in the Northeastern Conference, which was really tough. Yeah. And we ended up playing all sophomores, and we took a couple of beatings. So really after, in the 71, I always admired those kids. They, especially senior class, they just didn't have enough people. Yeah. We ended up, I think, something like our fourth or fifth quarterback started on Thanksgiving, and it was the second sophomore we were using. Wow. We just didn't do that once our program was going. But something like that was just abnormal. Fortunately, back in '72, we got back to a winning season again. In '73, we were in the Cape Ann League, and things went real well.
When you're rolling out sophomores like that, I mean, they're young adults, but they're kids too. I mean, is it tough to make sure? I mean, you got to be, as a coach, thinking like, we got to make sure these kids don't quit on us.
Well, you've got to really take care of them from the standpoint of you realize you're just throwing them in there because you're forced to. We had some tremendous injuries. You know, in '71, one of the greatest players I as far as personal for me was John Bear Courier. And John played with a bad leg. He hurt his leg. I think it was the first game of the season. We were down in Saugus, and from there, it just, everything started to erupt. We started to get so many injuries, and we were so thin that we just couldn't withstand it. So there was really those 2 years that we had to rebuild. Most of the years were fine. You know,
yeah.
things went well.
You stay very connected to the program in Newburyport. I know they still have you in to give some pregame speeches or however they do it.
Well, I was over prior to the Pentucket game, and they have usually have a pizza night.
Sure.
And they have someone over to speak. So I was over there, and when Coach Smolsky called me, and he said, "I also want you to know that we're going to honor Paul Coleman's memory at this game. You know, we lost who was not only my right hand man in Paul Coleman, but someone who I admired so much." And I went back to Natick when I first started coaching. That's where I found Paul.
Yeah.
You know, he was playing then. But anyway, they said they were going to put a decab on the gold helmet with Paul's name on it and everything else like that for the remainder of the season, and they dedicated the season to him. So I said, well, that's great, because I'd really like to talk to them about Paul, because let's face it, Drew. They unless you know, there's some way we're told who Paul Coleman was, or even who I was, or any of that. We've been gone so long. The only time they ever saw Paul, what Paul still did in his retirement, he always went back up to high school, and he sold tickets at the basketball game.
Yeah.
And that way he got to meet a lot of people and everything else like that. And to be honest with you, I wanted them to know who Paul really was, and not just the guy who sold tickets and was so, you know. Paul Coleman was a very unique individual. He served this community so well. He was a very charitable person for years after he was finished coaching. He still worked quite a bit on Thanksgiving days, feeding people and different things like that. He was so involved in the road races. He just was a good person. I remember him from what an outstanding athlete he was at Natick. Natick athletics in that time, and they still are. The amount of top performers they had. And when I came there, Paul was a junior. He was a big defensive tackle. He ended up going to Boston University, and Boston University was playing a top schedule then. You know, they played Syracuse, Pitt, Penn State, Kansas, all of those teams. And Paul played for a friend of mine, a coach I admired, named Hal Kopp. And when Paul, I got the job in '64, and that's the same year that Paul graduated. So I was looking for coaches, and I got Paul, and brought Paul with me, and he stayed with me the whole time and never left Newburyport. A lot of our coaches never left Newburyport.
You brought them here and they never
We
left.
brought them here and they left it. This was such a fine community for everybody, you know. Unfortunately, we lost Paul this past March. We also lost Danny Hogan a month or so later, and it's been tough. So of the 6 staff that served almost 15, 18 years together, 3 of them are gone. Pete Kalasian died several years ago, and so John Mulvaney's still around, and Billy Penningill's still around, and I'm still around. So, but Paul Coleman was just a special individual. You know, you not only have to watch how you coach, in a sense, as far as the treatment of young men. You have to be sure that the people that you choose to coach for you too are very capable people, and the type of people that you know the way they're handling him. Paul's a beautiful person. He was extremely well skilled because he had played for Hal Kopp, and he was so well good in the mechanics of line play and defensive play, and did so much. And you know, he loved being a coach.
Yeah.
And he typified what you really want a coach to be, as far as this is the kind of guy I'd like to coach my kids too, you know, and things like that. So.
And you trusted him.
I trusted him so much. We had a remarkable staff. It stayed together for over 15 years.
Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore.
It doesn't happen, and you have so much mobility going on and different things. Things are different, and they all stayed in the Newburyport area.
Yeah.
And, Billy and John Mulvaney and myself, we were still here.
That must mean a lot to you when you keep those coaches 15 years, one staff. I mean, that's a sense of pride in itself that you as the head man were able to keep that group together, right?
Well, it was. Things were a little easier from the standpoint with coaches, in the sense that you were able to get them jobs too. There were job opportunities in the high schools.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
It's very hard to. To walk into a high school now and see that a coaching staff, all of them are there, or all of them are in the system.
Right.
This doesn't happen anymore. There's not that many opportunities. So.
And I'd imagine it's hard to be a coach at any level and not be at the I guess at the high school level.
Yeah.
It's hard to be a coach and not be in the school, because I know people that go, maybe they coach at a different school from what they teach at, or a different community. I would imagine that's difficult.
It is difficult, the travel you have, the connection you have, and I always thought that it was very important, you know, to live in a community. Yeah. You know. We lived in Newburyport for 40 years. You know, I would certainly have stayed. We had a big house up in Lafayette Street, beautiful home, and I worked at the high school 2 blocks away. My wife Bev was a medical technologist, and she worked at the hospital, which was about 100 yards away.
Yeah.
You know, so I thought that it was very important. We were in a community. Our kids went to school here and everything, you know, so that was big for me.
Yeah, no, I know that always meant a lot to you. When you talk to those kids, you mentioned that, you know, some of those kids that you're talking to right now might not even know you, like, 'cause they just know the stories, you know?
Yeah.
But when you start talking to the current high school kids that are about to take the field, you know, on Thanksgiving, do you immediately see the connection of, like, do they engage because, you know what, this is a football guy who's been through it? Like, as soon as you start talking, do you see the connection?
Well, I find out that the one thing, they're very attentive, they're very courteous, and speak to someone after I'm finished. They usually come up and talk to them about. It's very let's say rewarding to talk to them.
Yeah.
Boy, they just concentrate so much, he just stare at you sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, geez, am I doing
You can ask some questions. It's okay.
Yeah. And it's a good opportunity. What I really, when I speak to them, I try not to be saying, "Hey, look, you know, we won all these games, we did this and that." That's not for me to. What I speak to them about is basically enjoy this time, make the most of this time, and live in the moment. When you're a freshman, be a freshman, you know, and do what a freshman does. And that time when you're a senior and you're the big dog, that'll all come.
Yeah.
But while this is on, make the most of it, because these 4 years, they're just going to fly by. You might not think now, and things may not be going that well for you, and you can't wait till you're a senior or something. Don't worry about that. You know, you're going to face that in life when you leave here. Where do you start over when you leave here? So that this is an experience that you might have to make the most of. Get everything out of it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's really important, and also to appreciate each other. You know, teams give you the opportunity to make friendships that you may not be able to make in a classroom. You know. Teams, you're able to share things with players, good and bad times, and make the most of it, and try to realize that you're there to experience life, and this is what life is, and there's a lot of tough times in life. So. When you're at Newburyport High School, be a Clipper, you know, and handle things, and be proud that you're a Clipper, and realize that many who came before you, they did a good job, and they passed that over to you. And you know, it's sort of something that you inherit.
It's a responsibility almost.
I told them, I said, you come from champions, you wear the gold helmets, and play like that, and play as hard as you can, and enjoy it as much as you possibly can. So.
I know all those alumni in the end zone there. They're still watching very closely.
Oh, yeah.
I got to
Especially
experience.
on Thanksgiving, you know, I was surprised years ago. I probably was still coaching. I remember one of the older ones saying, you know, a lot of the guys come back and they want to see who's wearing their number.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. So it's
kind of a weird thing, but yeah.
And your best chances of people coming back are Thanksgiving.
Yeah. What do you think about the state of the game in general? There's so many rule changes at every level. I mean, obviously some are done because of safety, but just your general thoughts on the state of the game of football.
Well, I think they have to keep their eyes on it continually. Safety has got to be such a key factor. You know, I think there was during my time and in those years there was more shoulder tackling.
Yeah.
And the helmets, as great as they are, when you have to build safety like that, sometimes that's you got to watch the way you use it. You just can't use it. If that's used improperly, that's a weapon.
Yeah.
You know, I watch the college games, and they do a very good job on it. Really monitoring it, that there's no bad penalties on it. But I think to keep the safety on it, they're doing a lot better job on below the knees. You know, now but safety's a really important thing.
Was there? I mean, there's probably moments. I think every coach, even as soon as recent as 20 years ago, we know so much more now about the head and concussions, and we're always learning more. Even the last 5 years, I'm sure. I remember when I was a kid, I couldn't tell you how many coaches would say, "It's just you got your bell rung, get back out there."
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that used to be the thing for every football game. Were you, when you look back on those days, were you thinking to yourself, "Wow, I wish we knew more about that," or were you guys pretty good about?
I thought we were pretty good. We first of all, we tried our best to not to teach at all any of use of your head and the helmet, projecting up towards the head of the opponent. And we tried to use our shoulders more when blocking, tackling, and everything else like that.
So that was practice.
And,
it was form and
And when we practiced our tackling, we did a lot with that. And we tried to be as aware as we possibly could. As far as the coaches, is everybody all right? And we always. They always knew that. I think they knew that we were concerned about
safety. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I know, I know I've heard some coaches say they would actually, because they've cut down on how much you do at practice as far as tackling, and I've heard some coaches say, don't cut down on that. Spend more time on the form of it, which is probably I'm sure there's arguments on both sides of that, but anyway, that's an interesting take from again Jim Stehlin joining us, the legendary coach at Newburyport. I mean, I always think it must be the coolest thing. I remember spending some time with you on the day they dedicated the field to you, Stehlin Field down there, and it's beautiful, man. Every time I see it, it's great. And you were nice enough to take 5 minutes for me and do a little interview, and I know you had microphones and people. Mike Lynch was there, I remember. Everybody was doing interviews with you that day, but you were nice enough to take some time with me at halftime, and it was just such a great day, and just years removed now. I mean, just your name's going to live on that field, forever. It must be the coolest thing in the world.
Well, it's a wonderful thing, and it's a very humbling thing. I never thought something like that. Plus the plaque, and then when they more or less put the big granite piece up, a monument for it, and that was beautiful, and the sign they have, and it means an awful lot to me. It means an awful lot to my family, but means an awful lot, I hope, to our players. I have such close friendships since actually closer during that period when they were going to honor the naming of the field. With the committee that was on that, and people, I'll give you Bob Arabino. Bob Arabino was the one who introduced me the night of it. So it was one of my, he played on my 65, 66 teams. Great lineman, great person. Bob Arabino, since that, the dedication itself has gone through a very tough situation in his life. He's a double amputee, and it's as a result of diabetes. And I talk to Bob every week. I go over there every few weeks, and he has a whole group of former players. Kevin Lucy, who's there all the time, and people who really. Have worked so hard on my behalf, and Bob was one of the leading forces and all that. Well, for example, with Bob, Bob probably has one of the most positive attitudes I've ever seen in a person. I have so much admiration for him, how he's handling this. He will call me up in a week and he'll say, how'd the rehab go? And he's getting to handle his new prosthesis and what he has to do, and it's a real challenge. And like Kevin Lucy said to me, boy, I don't know if I could handle what Bino's handling, and what he doesn't. But the people, all his friends, they have a group of that meet just about 3 or 4 times a week over at Bino's place. Kevin Colby went to school about that time. Was a great news reporter, and Paul, a great friend of Bino's from baseball days, is one of Paul Walton, who was one of Ainsbury's greatest baseball pitchers ever. You know, Paul's over there all the time, and I go over there, and it's a great just to talk to all of them. We talk all about Newburyport things, but people like Bino, to me, and it means an awful lot to Bino, and I know, and all that. That team around the 65 and 66, 67, they were so instrumental in having that name, you know, and the committee that worked on it. You know, people like Eddie O'Barra, Pat Ladd, Charlie Cullen, and them, all those people who did so much work. I really appreciate that so much, and it's been just such an honor. You know.
You know, as a guy who did not grow up here, you know, Danvers is my hometown, but I call this my adopted city now. You know, but I've been here for so long. But when I see you talk, so you go out of your way so often to glowingly talk about your former players and players that you loved, and it's easy to see why they come back and smile when they look and see your name up there, because it's just I don't know, it was a great thing you guys built. And
well, I want that to mean something to them, because you know. I told them so many times, you know, in those days, coaching was tough, boy. You better produce, you know. And I wouldn't be around if it wasn't for them. You know, they were the ones that we did it and put this all together, and we made it a memorable thing.
Well, James Stehlin, thank you again for taking time. I wish you and your family a happy Thanksgiving. I know it's a fun time. I hope everybody's doing well. How are you feeling? You look great. You feeling good?
I feel pretty good. You know, my wife, you know, I'm married for 62 years.
62 years. Good for you, man.
My wife, Beverly. The greatest thing ever happened to me.
I'm 6. How do you get to 62?
I don't know. It takes long. But she's been so great for me, our family. And we raised 3 kids in Newburyport, Kevin, Kelly, Carr, and it's been such a wonderful time for me. Newburyport will always mean so much to me, you know. And but Bev's the one. She keeps me going. Her direction over the years and just her being with me has been so great.
Coach's wife is not an easy job.
Yeah, it isn't. And she was the #1 fan, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
You know, and we had you know, our house was filled all the time. You know, with the players, people, fans, and everything. So. Great experience
indeed. What's these kids are about to take the field for Thanksgiving Day, and obviously it's a huge day on the football calendar. It's a huge day on Newburyport's calendar, a huge day on so many communities' calendar here in this state. And I just wonder, what would you tell those kids that are getting ready to take the field on Thanksgiving Day if you had to tell them to keep one thing in mind?
Well, the one thing in mind, I would play with a big heart. This is your time to shine, and you're going out in front of probably the biggest crowd you had all year, you know, and try to remember all those people who came before you. This game meant so much to them. Play your heart out. Play with class and pride and respect for your opponents. It's a great opportunity. You may never ever be in front of this many people in your life again.
Too cool. So. Very cool. Well, Coach Stehlin, thank you so much again for taking time. Happy Thanksgiving, and enjoy it. Were you traveling?
No, we're at home.
You're home.
Know,
All
we'll
right.
have some of the family over and just.
Awesome.
Always look forward to Thanksgiving.
I always look forward to seeing you around Thanksgiving here in our studios. Thank you so much for doing it, Coach.
Okay, do.
All right,
Good to be here.
Jim Stehlin. Hope you all enjoyed that. Good luck to the Clippers. Good luck to your family get-togethers and all that stuff. Hope you're all having a good Thanksgiving. My name is Drew Moholland, live at Drew's House, Joppa Afternoon Drive. Sarah Hayden, Ryan Rothberg, Sarah Blackstone, our small but mighty team here in Newburyport, bringing this show. Again, we wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. My name is Drew Moholland, live at Drew's House. We'll see you next time, all right?